like to call to order the meeting of the Methacton School Board. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for the purposes of rebroadcasting. For attendance, all current board members are present with the exception of Mr. McFarland. Reports. Student reports?
Okay, so since last week was a November meeting, there was not too much news to report, but also last week the Future Business Leaders of America competed in their objective tests in their respective field of business. So they'll hopefully hear back later this month to see if any students moved on to the next round. And in addition, Keystone testing is starting for students this week as well. And the holiday tea was today for the teachers, and it looked like it was really nicely decorated, and they did a nice job.
Thank you.
Two juniors, Emily Chang and Jerry Liu, will be heading to Washington, D.C. next week to participate in the Siemens competition in math, science, and technology. And their project is titled Simultaneous Detection of Genetic and Epigenetic DNA Modification by Next Generation Sequencing for Cancer Screening. And their project could earn them college scholarships ranging from $1,000 all the way up to $100,000. They make up only 2 of the 5 students who will be representing our entire state of Pennsylvania in this national competition. So good luck to Emily and Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to this board meeting. On tonight's agenda are the acceptance of a resignation that has been submitted, an appointment to fill that seat on the school board and other related matters, and to consider any other business. Deferred to a future meeting when there is a newly reorganized school board in place are issues that the school board will deal with in the coming months, such as the report on Methacton School District test scores and performance, the preliminary view of the budget for 2016-17, and school consolidation. On Wednesday of last week, Mr. Nascimento tendered his resignation. On that same day, an ad was sent to the Times-Herald announcing a meeting for Monday, November 30th, at which time we plan to act on that resignation. Unfortunately, because of the intervening holiday, that ad did not appear until yesterday, which was too late to announce such a meeting. So the district used its methods of communication to announce that there would be no meeting last night. It also became clear that state law stipulates that school board terms begin and end on the first Monday of December following the election. Had the new board members been seated today, Methacton would have had 13 board members. The 7 present tonight, 1 who was unable to attend, and the 5 newly elected members. That cannot be. Reorganization will occur next Monday, December 7th, the earliest date possible, when 5 newly elected members will join the remaining members on the board. It must be mentioned that the current members of the school board have received communications that characterize their actions as board members with words that do not represent the work they have done or the dedication they have to the good work of the school district. It is my hope that such commentary will not continue to occur, and that in the interest of working together effectively, community members will refrain from such future comments. On the subject of appointing a new member to the board, the law requires appointment within 30 days of date of resignation, and that the nominee meet certain criteria. I will entertain a motion this evening to appoint Scott Dorn of Audubon, Pennsylvania, Lower Providence Township, to the board. The board has not yet collectively discussed this nomination, but we will do so tonight. As always, the members of the public will be asked for comment prior to any action.
People are so weird.
Also, as policy states, we are asking each speaker to limit their presentation to up to 3 minutes. So the next item on our agenda is public comment on board action items. And the action items on tonight's agenda come under item 8 and item 13. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment?
Related to Chris Boardman, Worcester, related to the overall proceedings of the meeting tonight, I'd like to read from our own school policy. Organizational meeting. The board members shall meet and organize annually during the first week of December. Notice of the time and place of that organization meeting shall be given to all board members by mail at least 5 days before the proposed board meeting. So our policy states you need to have the organization meeting this week, and you need to notify us in writing in the mail at least 5 days in advance. So in order to adhere to the policy, you would have to try to fit in a meeting for this week, and it's impossible to adhere to the letter of our policy because there's no way you can mail us a letter in at least 5 days in advance, even if you had the meeting on Friday. So I would say that since we received a letter 5 days in advance that notified us to come here tonight on December 1st at 7 for the reorganization meeting, and we never received a letter to rescind that, I'd say that we need to hold the reorganization meeting tonight. Thank you. Can somebody please explain to me why I'm wrong in that?
I'd be happy to discuss the concern that you just raised. My name's Kyle Summers. I'm with the District Solicitor's Office of Deschelles, Bartle, and Dooley. You are correct in that school policy, as well as a particular section of the school code that talks about reorganization, states that the board must organize during the first week of December. That section must be also read with the other sections of the school code that talk about the election of new new board members. That other section of the school code says that new board members take their seats and the terms of current board members expire on the first Monday of December. The first Monday of December will be next Monday. So even if the board held what it would call a reorganization meeting tonight, the recently elected board members would not have any authority. Their terms don't begin until the first Monday of December. So to the extent that a reorganization meeting was scheduled for tonight or announced for tonight, it simply can't take place because those new board members don't actually take their seats under the law until Monday.
But the state policy also supports this.
There's
The state code.
The public school code?
Yeah.
The public school code does say during the first week of December the board shall organize, which the first week is, there are two interpretations of that. One is it's the first 7 days of December. A week. Another interpretation is that it's the first full week of December, which would not be until next week.
Yeah.
It says week, which it constitutes the first 7 days. Next Monday is within, if I can just finish the response.
Let him finish, please.
The section of the school code that talks about reorganization during the first week of December is section 401. Section 303 of the school code talks about when the terms of the newly elected board members starts. That section, and there's also a case from the Commonwealth Court that says that terms of current board members end on the first Monday in December. Obviously, yesterday was not the first Monday of December. It was the last Monday of November. The first Monday of December is next Monday. That's when legally the power transfers from the board members who were previously elected to the newly elected board members. So even if the board held a reorganization meeting tonight, it could not include any recently elected members because they don't have the authority of a board member until the first Monday in December.
Why did you
So here,
That was the scheduling.
Excuse me. There's a person at the podium who has a voice at the moment.
thank you.
Do you have any questions?
I do have a couple other questions. So you're either admitting we're violating our school policy.
Excuse me, Mr. Boardman.
Yeah.
Neither item 8 nor item 13 are the subject of your comments, and those are the comments that we're receiving at this moment.
What I'm proposing is the whole meeting purpose is in question.
But that is not the purpose of public comment on board action items
Okay.
at this moment.
The question is about the authority of the board, and I agree that that's a fair question to ask. The first week of December is your question is the policy reference to the first week in December. What does that mean? And my response is that it can only mean one of two things. It either means the first 7 days of December, which start today, and the last possible day is next Monday. Or it means the first full week of December, which would not start until next week. I agree that that's not a reasonable interpretation. So it starts the first week of December, first 7 days, starts today. So between now and the 7th day of December, the board has to convene to reorganize. You need to read that section in accordance with when board members have the authority to meet, when those new board members can be sworn in, can take the oath. And that happens, that authority passes on the first Monday of December, which hasn't happened yet.
Okay, thank you for explaining the
You're
detail. Couple follow-up questions, if I might. One is, the letter was sent out to all of us saying, show up tonight for the reorganization. That letter was never rescinded in writing.
Did you receive that through U.S. mail?
Yes. It was never rescinded. And the policy states that, all these notifications have to happen in mail, right?
You should, because Monday is the first day in which new board members can take authority, or that the authority to be a board member occurs. And that's also the date during the first week of December when the reorganization meeting needs to take place. You should receive in the mail notice for that meeting 5 days in advance.
And also,
It's not, it's just 5 calendar days.
the other confusing part to us is that what you're saying is that's the way that the law is in the state of Pennsylvania. But there are about 5 other schools in our local community that are doing their reorg meetings this week. So are you suggesting they're violating the state law by doing that?
I've only been asked about, I can only give advice for Methacton School District. The other school districts of which I'm aware are all holding their meetings next Monday. I don't know of the other school districts that you're talking about.
I can give you a list of them right now if you'd like.
The interpretation that I just gave is really the only possible interpretation of when the authority for new board members takes place. Now, if there was a meeting that took place before that, I think there would be a question of whether those board members had the authority to take any action. If there's a reorganization and no action takes place at that meeting, there's a question of who would challenge that.
Okay. All right, thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome.
Hello, Andrew Sandner, Lower Providence. I help teach an ethics class at the graduate school level alongside an attorney, and a vote to support this motion would be a blatant violation.
Mr. Sandner, would you tell us which item you're talking about?
The election to put a new board member in place tonight.
Thank you.
I help teach an ethics class at the graduate school level, once again, alongside an attorney, and a vote to support this motion would be a blatant violation of textbook ethical behavior. The textbook is Business Ethics, Decision-Making for Personal Integrity and Social Responsibility. My discussion will contain excerpts. Ethical rules are described as follows. Obviously, the legal rules. The book even states that the law imposes 3 clear duties on board members as follows. Care. This motion does not take prudent care as it is rushing the application and approval process in a manner completely inconsistent with the precedent environment you have created in the past. This is the third time the majority of this board is going to appoint a new director. Recently, Mr. Pelicano and Mr. McFarland were appointed in a process including public notice for candidates, the vetting of candidates, and personal discussion with the candidates, as well as a public interview of the top 3 candidates, taking from 20 to 26 days. And while those appointments can all be called into question, we are now seeing a motion to arbitrarily appoint a non-publicly and completely vetted individual. Additionally, the communications with the community regarding this motion has been untimely and completely, intentionally or not, confusing. Good faith. This motion clearly violates good faith, as those sitting board members who have been voted out by the community are trying to impact the board by much more than their remaining few days. This is also violated as the person up for the position was on the last election ballot, at least if it's someone who was on the last election ballot, and lost as the majority of the community did not support that person. And loyalty. There is loyalty to something, but we know it's not to our community. Obviously, this motion is not within the spirit of the law. In addition to laws, there are rules which are derived from various institutions in which we participate, such as a school board's duty to its constituents, which I just explained would be violated. Further, there are professional rules imposed on folks such as CPAs, attorneys, and other licensed individuals. As just discussed, legal compliance is insufficient. Therefore, the book describes an ethical organization culture as cultivating values, expectations, and patterns of behavior. In fact, one of MSD's shared values is a belief in high ethical standards are critical to effective citizenship. It is not just school districts that have such values. For example, the University of Pennsylvania states that all members need to understand and uphold both the legal requirements and the highest of ethical standards. They have strict ethical guidelines. Therefore, they understand you need to do more than just the legal minimum. The book indicates that even well-intended people can fail to make ethical choices. They may use rationalization, justification, or may simply consider limited alternatives. Don't let this be you. Please also realize the impact it can have on you as individuals. As you now have been educated, you no longer can claim ignorance. As we tell the students, in the event you ever get into a position where your moral character comes into question or you're up for a promotion, this is public record, and your decision today may have an impact years out. Additionally, such a vote will call into question various business and professional ethics codes, such as the AICPA, PICPA, the National Association of Realtors, the Healthcare Financial Management Association, and on and on. And don't think there aren't any real consequences either. A lower Providence supervisor paid a fine levied by the Pennsylvania Ethics Committee for inadvertently violating the state's public official and employee ethics law in a financial situation with regard to the Shenandoah Retirement Community.
Mr. Sander, will you finish, please?
Yes. As Warren Buffett, the owner of Berkshire Hathaway fame, said, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. Please don't ruin our education.
Thank you.
Andre Goldstein, Lower Providence, and I'm here to talk about item 13. So how did we hear about this action tonight? Clear communication from our district superintendent or this board? No. We only began to hear about this from a puzzling middle-of-the-night notice in the Times Herald. Calls and emails to the administration provided no clear answers. We had to wait until an article in the Times Herald to learn what was going on in our own district. When it comes to wishing us well for the holiday, Dr. Zerbe, you can't find more channels to communicate that to us. But this, something of this magnitude, when it comes to an issue this important, you choose to not communicate directly with the community? This has happened too often for me to believe that it's an innocent breakdown in communication, but rather, this is a deliberate attempt to conceal your true intentions to the public, and someone needs to be held accountable. This is clearly a politically motivated and unethical move driven by some hidden agenda that borders on misconduct, which sadly at this point comes as no surprise from this group of board members. What you are proposing today does not follow at all the precedent that you've set previously for the last 3 board member replacement appointments. To do this at this stage of your terms after the recent election speaks to your true nature. As individuals, you don't have to support this. We followed a fair and democratic process in November by which the community clearly made its feelings known. It did not want your 4 voices speaking for us any longer. Respect that outcome and leave this decision to the next board to address. Although you may be legally able to take this action, ethically and morally, as a lame duck board who overwhelmingly lost its mandate and public confidence to continue to serve, you should not be making this 11th hour appointment, especially by appointing someone who received the least support in the recent election. and by disregarding the replacement process precedent that you've set in the last 3 interim appointments for replacement board members. So let me share with you a couple of quotes from your own board procedures and code of conducts document. Under qualifications for a board member, the first item says, quote, you must, quote, be of good moral character, unquote. But supporting this action tonight clearly does not fulfill that first qualification. Also, from your own code of ethics, within this Board of Procedures document, it states that the board should, quote, welcome and encourage active cooperation by citizens, organizations, and the media of communication in the district with respect to establishing policy on current school operation and proposed future developments, unquote. Are you upholding the spirit of this clause with your blatant disregard for community involvement in this replacement appointment process? I think the answer is clear. Mr. Dorn, with all due respect, you garnered the least support and the least amount of votes by any candidate and lost by the greatest margin in this last election. Do you really want to start your stint in public service under the veil of suspicion and mistrust that this rushed appointment creates? And to the board.
Mr. Goldstein.
Yeah, I'll finish up here. And to the board, is this the last desperate action? Is this last desperate action really what you want to be remembered for?
Mr. Goldstein.
I stood in front of you in February. Thank you, just give me another.
Your time is up. No. Your time
I
is up.
stood in front of you in February and asked, what's the rush?
Mr. Goldstein.
And I'm asking that again tonight.
There's a lot of people that want to speak.
I don't believe that individually you all truly think that this cloak and dagger
Mr.
appointment
Goldstein.
is a morally and ethically sound decision. Listen to that voice. I urge you to vote your true conscience. And I hereby submit.
Just making sure it's a little calmer.
I will not go through that again. Let me just say that right now.
Then leave the room.
Hey, Mr. Goldstein, you be quiet. You be quiet. I've sat here to listen to you. You will listen to me now. This proceeding will go through fine tonight. All I'm asking is everybody to talk nicely. I don't need any yelling. I don't need any snide remarks from you, ma'am, and I don't know who you are. But enough's enough. I've sat through this for 6 months now. I will not sit it through it anymore. There's no need for it. All right? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Matt Bogard, Lower Providence. So I just have 2 quick questions. The first question is, how long would this appointment, would this individual who's appointed serve?
The unexpired term is 2 years.
But I believe, per state policy, he'll only serve until the December that follows any general election 60 days after his appointment. Is that correct, Solicitor?
It would be until the next municipal election that occurs at least 60 days from when the resignation occurs. So the next municipal election from today
Would be the primary.
the next municipal election would be the election of November of 2017.
I don't believe that you're allowed to appoint the individual to a 2-year term if their term to a greater than 2-year term. If you appoint an individual tonight, they will be serving for greater than 2 years. They'll be serving from tonight, which is December 1st, till December 4th, 2017, which I believe exceeds 2 years.
It's the section of the school code that talks about school vacancies specifically
Says if it's greater than 2 years, which, I'm sorry, but 2 years plus 2 days is greater than 2 years. If we want to be sticklers to the rules, we need to be sticklers to the rules effectively. Second question, who does the school board serve? Does the school board serve the party that endorsed them, or does the school board serve their community? If we feel that the school board serves its community, then I do not think we should take any action tonight that will be a rush, because we have, as you said, 30 days to appoint someone, so we have time to take due process. So all I ask is, you ask yourself, as you make this vote, who do you serve? Do you serve the community, or do you serve the party that endorsed you? Thank you.
Andrea Reese, Lower Providence. I'm going to go off my script for a second. I was not able to make last week's board meeting, and I did not get a chance to say thank you to the people at the table, because no matter what's going on, I know you did a lot of good, and I know you did a lot for the community. I want to tell Tara and Sarah, sorry, this is a little bit contentious. I don't think it was anybody's plan to get up here and show anger, but it's been a difficult year. To Mr. Dorn, no matter what happens, if you join our board or not, we can all work together. However, I would like to go through the proper process. So I'm going to get back on track. I was elected to be a Methacton school director and will begin my term in 7 days. I also applied twice in 2014 after 2 board directors resigned within weeks of each other. Myself and at least another dozen community members applied after a public notice requested resumes and cover letters be sent to the district. 3 people were chosen to be interviewed in public, and then 1 was appointed to the board. As I stated, this happened twice in 2014, and it is how Peter McFarland and Greg Pellicano are now board directors. Since the election on November 3rd, I have been reading extensively and attending trainings to prepare myself to be the best school director for Methacton that I can possibly be. I feel it is my responsibility to remind the current directors of the pledge found on the back of the publication entitled The First 60 Days of School Board Service. I have chosen a few specific statements you may have forgotten. Number 1, I will honor the position of parents and uphold the public trust with which I am charged. Number 2, I will conduct myself as a member of the Board of Education in a manner that will serve as a personal and public model of appropriate behavior and democratic governance. Number 3, I will not permit my personal biases and opinions to interfere with teaching and learning, nor allow considerations of religion, nationality, race, party politics, or social standing to intervene between my duties and my actions. Number 4, I will maintain utmost respect for human dignity and values, and I will hold human caring and consideration as the fundamental value in the student-educator-board-citizen relationship. Number 5, I make this promise solemnly and freely for as long as I serve as a member of the Board of Education. Are you upholding this pledge, specifically these 5 statements? If answered no, then please stop this nonsense and allow the new board director to be appointed in the fair and just manner that has been practiced in the recent past. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dr. Winnie Hayes. I'm a resident of Worcester. I'm also the Republican chair for Worcester Republican Committee, and I'd like to make some comments. First of all, I'm not speaking on behalf of that committee. I'm speaking as an individual. But I want everybody in the audience to know that the party in Worcester was not approached about this appointment. So we were not included in the discussion of this process. I also want to go on record as saying I'm not supporting an appointment tonight. Now, many before me have been very eloquent in their statements as to why not. I guess what I'd like to add is, first of all, let me recognize all board members. This is a really tough job. I know, I did it for 4 years. It's terribly time-consuming. It requires a lot of thought, a lot of thinking. It's a tough job, and you will never make everybody happy. But please don't do something tonight that will spoil your legacy, because this is not the right decision. You are a lame duck board. You are on your way out. And the public has spoken in the last election, and I'll acknowledge the candidates I supported as the Republican chair in Worcester lost. I was disappointed. I supported Scott Dorn among those candidates. But the public has spoken, and an election has occurred, and the appropriate thing is to allow the new board to make choices as to who will fill that position that Christian is vacating. A second point is that we have a process. You are ignoring that process. That process was transparent. It was inclusive. It included advertising for an open position, welcoming applicants, those citizens who are interested in this role, looking at their qualifications, public interviews of those that were the strongest candidates, and finally, a selection based on that process. That process is open and transparent. This is not a good decision, and I strongly recommend that you not vote tonight to fill that position. Thank you.
Michael Ryan, Lower Providence. I would like to start by asking a question. I'm speaking to item number 13, Ms. Hackett, in case you're keeping track. I understand accepting the resignation of Christian Nascimento tonight, but I would like to ask the question of who decided to put on the agenda this evening to appoint the new director tonight? Would anyone like to take responsibility for that? Because someone had to put it on the agenda. It didn't just magically appear, and it doesn't have to be done. So would someone like to take responsibility to be the one that, yes, I did it? No? Okay. Well, hopefully during your discussion of the appointment tonight, that comes out, because we talk about communication and transparency, and you're basically laughing at everyone in this audience tonight. Everyone is here for one reason, and it's to fight what you're about to do. If you firmly believe you're doing the right thing, where is the rest of the audience that's standing behind what you're doing? Everyone is here for one reason and one reason only, okay? I always like to look at the way Methacton has done things in the past and specific things that they have put out there in writing. From August 2014, Methacton Mobile News, regarding the board vacancies resulting from the resignations of Joyce Petrauskas and Mark O'Neill. Quote, "The vacancies were publicly advertised and potential candidates were invited to submit their applications to the board. Following the board's review of all potential candidates' applications, the 3 highest scoring candidates were interviewed during the public meeting held on June 9th and June 24th. The board voted unanimously to appoint Pelicano and McFarland to their positions following public question and answer." End quote. This is from a release that you put out as Methacton. You were proud of your process then. Where is that process now? And I would say 7 board members on the board now supported that process. The other 2 are the result of that process. How can anyone sit behind what is happening this evening? That's it.
Kim Aubrey-Larseny's Lower Providence. Before I get started, Mrs. Byrne, when I came in tonight, I made sure that my cell phone was on silent, and I'd ask that you please do the same because it's disrespectful to the people that are speaking tonight. Okay. Well, the timer doesn't have to be audible, and it's disruptive, I think, to the people of the audience. Secondly, I know that there's concern among the community about the way that this was communicated with the public, and I just want to publicly acknowledge that the communications on this is something that I've learned through my training as a future board member, come at the direction of the board. So the frustration that we all feel should be directed in that direction. Dr. Zerbe is just an agent of the board in this matter. To my prepared comments here. The first time I addressed this board back in February, it was because the board was rushing a process that didn't need to be rushed. Under the guidance of our district solicitor, the board was taking an approach to a potential school closure that was legal. However, by all accounts, the process was ill-advised and not in the best interest of our students and community. I find it ironic that I'm standing here now, 9 months later, under similar circumstances. While much has changed in these 9 months to give me hope for the future of our district, tonight, I'm most disappointed by what remains the same. At every board meeting since those public hearings in February, I've witnessed a board that has the opportunity to do better, to make better choices, to try to get back on course to a better process. And I've seen this board choose poorly, time and time again. When I addressed the board in February, I brought examples of other districts handling similar problems in a different way. Other districts that took the issues of changing enrollment and approached the issue with thoughtfulness, care, and time. As you sit here, ready to vote Scott Dorn to this recently vacated seat, I ask again, why the rush? Phoenixville recently had a board member resign. Resignation was quite similar to what we're dealing with here at Methacton. It occurred after the election, before the new board took seat. Their timeline from the resignation, which occurred on November 12th, to the scheduled appointment of a replacement, December 7th, is 25 days. They're appointing their new member to be sworn in the same time as their board reorganization, after the board reorganization. In 2014, when Joyce Petrauskas resigned her seat on May 20th, 2014, was an action that many anticipated for months before it even happened, and the board still took until June 9th, 20 days, to fill the vacancy. And again, when Mark O'Neill resigned 1 week later at the May 27th meeting, the board had the option of appointing someone simultaneously at the June 9th meeting. They already had applicants to consider, but instead they took even more time, until June 24th, to appoint a replacement, a full 28 days. So what's different now? The only variable at play here is politics. The community has made it clear with their actions in November that they want the political games and partisan politics to end in Methacton. And yet, here we are. As I prepare to take my seat on the board next week, I've attended trainings and read materials at the urging of the district and current board members. One of the things I've heard repeated often in this training is that community engagement is critical to doing the job well. We are elected to vote our honest convictions on the issues brought before the board. Our actions as individuals don't always count, but it is our duty as elected officials to vote according to the best interests of the school district. Actions like these are your legacy. They are what will remain when the 5 of you step down next week and a new board is formed. Do you want your legacy, your final actions on this board, to be one last move of rushed, ill-advised decision-making?
My name is Joe Ferrero, 12 Pine Tree Drive. They will be able to speak for as long as they wish come next week. Too bad. I'm very sorry that you're witnessing the cynicism, the cynical disease that's in play here.
Excuse me.
You're going to be left with it. All right, I'll address you. I'll address you. Because it's really a shame, because you are...
Could you also tell us which item on the agenda you are...
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the number. What's the magic number? Can someone give me the magic number? 13. I hear a 13. I hear a 13. Talk about cynical. You know, we have elections for a reason. You lost the election this year because of the way you performed. You were the incumbent. You were the people who were supposed to do the job and do it properly. You did not do that. You did it to the point where these people here rose up and saw the opportunity, no, not the opportunity, but the absolute need to have you removed from office. And as we sit here today, reading newspaper articles, newspaper accounts that aren't even really advertised as resignations and interview process. It's just a news item. Oh, the Methacton drama queens will put on another show again to show us that they really don't care about democracy, because democracy was in action a month ago. And for you to ignore that, I don't know where you come from. I don't know where you gain credibility from. And Mr. Dorn, if you take a seat, if you accept the seat that they are about to give you, I don't know where you will ever get credibility from again. Because you're getting something tainted. You're getting a poisoned seat. You want me to address you? You're serving him poison. Because he will never be effective. He will never have credibility to look somebody in the eye and say, yeah, I earned that seat on the Methacton School Board. I have credibility. No, you won't have credibility because it was given to you in a political game. If Mr. Dorn wants to apply for the job, let him do it right. Let them do it when the new 5 members step onto this board. Don't set a trap for these people. We've had enough problems over the years, whether it is a school board president who punches out a constituent, whether it is a school board superintendent who can't keep himself under control, whether it is another school board president that has a drinking problem and we can't get removed. We now have the cynicism. Please stop the cynicism. Thank you.
Hello, Paul Winters, Lower Providence. I'd like to talk about number 8. No, I'm just joking. Number 13. Try. I'll try. I seriously look forward next week to be on the board and working as a cohesive unit. Hopefully, we can work as a cohesive unit and talk about education and fiscal responsibility and a preliminary budget and getting to the work that we're supposed to be doing and not talking about transparency, but displaying transparency. I want to follow up also on something that what Mike said related to you might want to ask your question to your solicitor about how this particular call for a meeting came about. As a president can ask the Dr. Zerbe for a meeting, or I think it's a majority or 5 or something like that. I don't know the exact, but you might want to ask that question to make sure you're completely confident before you vote on this that you should be voting on it. And as a point of optimism, I see some body language that indicates to me that some of you really do not want to vote for this. So I know that a lot of you have served for years and have done the right things and tried to do the right things and had it in your soul to do the right things. Some of us don't feel like they were the right things, but you personally felt like they were the right things. So we respect that. Here's your chance to do one last right thing. Thank you.
Really quickly, for the benefit of the board, I just want to note that tonight's meeting is a regular meeting that was advertised when the full slate of meetings for the year were advertised. So it is a properly convened meeting.
Thank you. John Andrews, Lower Providence. I'm really sorry that we have such a contentious event taking place here. And relative to some of Mr. Boardman's comments, it was about a year ago that this board voted for a reorganization tonight. It seems to me that the board says, whatever the state requires of us, we're going to leave office a week early. And I think there's some legality to that vote that they took. And that legality isn't being respected this evening by not having the reorganization this evening that was told to us for well over a year. But going on to my comments here, where you say I have 3 minutes, something that's not condoned in the Sunshine Act. And I reference my letter to the editor in the Times-Herald of October 22nd, 2015. And in that letter, one phrase was that Methacton is a mess. After a long series of lapses, this board and its president have been a large disappointment, to put it mildly. For instance, just a week ago, a questionable busing solution squeaked through on an issue that had been hidden from us and festering since August. An election to throw the rascals out occurred a month ago, 28 days to be exact, and our public was decisive. Finally, a Nascimento resignation letter appeared just yesterday, hardly a display of his decisiveness. I wonder for how many months he's been a world traveler and not doing right on his job for us here, and board silence on that issue also. So this is the wrong board to pick a director to focus on education, our purpose, more so than some other activities such as sports or adding excess staff top to bottom. I hope no director gets appointed before December 7th, 2015. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beth Pfeiffer, and I'm from Eagleville. And I'm a parent of a special needs child who goes to Woodland. You are playing politics with my son's education, and I don't come here as anything but a parent and a concerned citizen. Be careful. There are a lot of people in this room who can see right through this action, even those of us who aren't politicians themselves. Please think before you do something here tonight that will affect every child in this district, and it will most certainly affect your political futures as well, and that's coming from a non-politician. I know that well enough. Why isn't it important enough for you all to play by the same rules that we ask our children to play with or play by every day? Thank you.
Hi, Patty Campbell from Audubon. I don't know if you'll answer this question, but I'll ask this of all of you. Why the rush? If we've taken the time before, I think by doing what you're going to do with Mr. Dorn and appoint him, you're going to create a lot of animosity, and you're going to create a lot of animosity amongst the board members, those that are staying and those that are coming on, and that will impact our children, our children's education. What's going to happen? You're going to be fighting each other, and nothing will get done. I think we need to stop. We need to stop the animosity on both sides, and we all need to come together as a group and pick the right person so that everybody works together, because the end result is our kids. That's it. It's not whether you have political ambitions or not. I don't want your job. It's terrible. And guess what? In a week, everybody's going off the board. You get to be out here and rip everybody on the board a new one. See? So it'll work out great. You get 3 minutes, but it'll all be okay. But the thing is, you just can't rush into this. You're going to create a lot more issues and a lot more problems. So you're going to create problems for Dr. Zerbe. Look, he's already lost his hair. So, sorry. So, you see, I'm trying to lighten the mood because it's terrible. It shouldn't be this way. It really shouldn't. The end result is our kids. And just play nice in the sandbox. That's what I've always taught my children. So, please, don't.
Preston Lutweiler, Audubon. I didn't know when I came here tonight whether I would be talking about the appointment of Mr. Dorn as a hypothetical or whether it would be out in the open, and now it finally, at this hour, has come out in the open that he is the magic replacement name for Mr. Nascimento. Unfortunately, it looks like you guys have got yourselves all twisted around an axle trying to get this done. You were trying to have a special meeting on Monday, but, the advertisement didn't get in on time, so that didn't work out for you. By the way, I'm speaking about item number 13. Instead, you now have moved the reorganization meeting to the 7th and taken this meeting to do what you were going to try to do, I presume, at the special meeting on Monday, which was canceled. I just want everybody here, everybody in the audience, your students, to understand the politics behind what's going on here this evening. Mr. Dorn, we met when we were campaigning down on Tyson Mill Road.
Excuse me, you're to give comments to the board based on the action items.
And the action item is to have an election to elect Mr. Dorn to the board, and I want him to know that, we met. I don't see him as an evil person. He's got a lot in common with me. He's a retired engineer. We were both campaigning together. We also have something in common. He lost an election, and I lost an election. He lost by more votes than I lost my election. And yet here he is this evening going to be elected onto this board. Now, I hope that he will be able to work with the new board. And I hope that this board will come together and focus on the education of the students in Methacton. But right now, you are about to give the audience, the members of the communities you serve, and these two students who are here tonight, a lesson in how democracy can be abused by politics. There was an election in November. They lost, and they're trying to get another person in here on the losing ticket at the last minute. And it stinks. It really does. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kelvin, Carolina, 900 Creeble Mill Road. Not to talk about politics, but I'm the chairman of the Lower Providence Democratic Committee. I would like all of you to search your conscience because of the election that we had and the overwhelming success of the new candidates that were elected, that maybe there should be some other resignations going forward so that everyone can have a good working relationship going forward. And Mr. Dorn, I don't know you, but if I was you, I would not take a position like this at all. Thank you.
Diane McTammany Guy in Lower Providence. I guess it's more of a question, I haven't had time to read through everything. Are we not allowed to have a vacancy on the board during those 30 days? I'm really not understanding, I'm asking an honest question. I get that it's tricky there was an election, and then with his resignation, and then a reorganizational meeting, but is there something in the code that says we can't have a board member not there? That's the piece of this that I think I'm not getting.
No, there's the requirement is for the board within 30 days of the resignation. Assuming that the resignation is accepted tonight, that would start the clock for 30 days. If the board within those 30 days does not appoint someone to the position, then any resident taxpayer of the community can petition the court to appoint someone to the board.
Okay, so next week the reorganizational meeting could occur with one less person. So there's really no legal need tonight to do this. That's what I need to understand.
That's correct.
So no legal reason to do anything tonight. Okay, thank you.
Ashley Wilkerson from Audubon. I'll be speaking about item number 13. So the way I understand it, the timeline is that on the 25th, Mr. Nascimento submitted a letter of resignation. And some of these questions will have been asked before, but I just want to clarify. Who requested that the ad be placed in the Times Herald? Because that's not something that Dr. Zerbe can do. Somebody from the board has to request that. If you don't want to take responsibility for it, then it's an action you shouldn't take as a public servant. Which one of you proposed that instead of a 20 to 30-day selection process that takes into account many candidates and is thoughtful, like the one used in the previous appointments, that we should instead just appoint someone? Will anyone raise their hand on that? I'll say again, if you don't want to take responsibility for it, it's an action that you shouldn't take as a public servant. Which of you suggested that instead of swearing in the newly elected board members tonight, that meeting should be postponed until next week so that they would not be able to address the board vacancy? I'm going to guess that we're not going to have any hands for that either, and I will say it again. If you don't want to take responsibility for it, then it's not an action that you should take as a public servant. The tide is turning in Methacton. After decades of political decision-making in the schools, the public has had enough. It's the reason more people show up to these meetings than before. It's the reason that each move the board makes is closely watched. It's the reason there will be a new majority on this board starting next week. You may think that this is all about the issues, whether or not to close a school, whether or not to outsource buses, whether or not to appoint a new board member. But what I think you may be failing to grasp here is that it is as much, if not more so, about process and communication. There's a way to examine whether or not to close a school, and there's a way to communicate it, but you have failed on both counts. There's a way to look at outsourcing, and there is a way to communicate it, but you have failed on both counts. There's a process to appoint a new board member, and there are requirements for how to communicate that information, and you're about to fail again. You took an oath to do what is best for this district. What is best for this district is an open and thoughtful and transparent process. Is Mr. Dorn the best person for the job? He might be. He might not. There are a lot of people here with resumes tonight. Who else has their resume? Just in this room, that many resumes. I'm happy to submit mine. We've got a lot more that we can take. If you really believe that Mr. Dorn is the best candidate for this job, then let him submit his application with ours so that whoever is chosen is selected based on a process that our community can respect. Thank you.
Matt Bogard, Lower Providence.
I'm sorry, you've already spoken.
I don't believe I used my 3 minutes, so I said one question, please. I realize that no one here is saying they request this meeting. I would just like to know who feels it is in the district's best interest to make this vote tonight. And I hope that you have that public dialogue, whether you feel that this is in the best interest, and each one of you who's voting tonight speaks up for why you feel it's in the district's best interest. And it very well, you may have very logical and rational and ethical reasons for those, but please elaborate on those prior to your vote so we can understand what's driving this decision. And then if we understand what's driving this decision, we won't be judging you, right? We won't be saying this is an unethical, evil decision, because we need to understand the framework that you work in. At work, a lot of times they say you need to get inside the tunnel with somebody after an accident happens. You understand what they're thinking, what their perception was. I just want to understand what you're thinking, what your perception is. And so if tonight, I'm not sure how this is going to work, if you're going to have open discussion, please enlighten us with your thinking and your logic so that I can support this as a member of the community.
Michelle Kirshner, Audubon, speaking on number 13.
I'm sorry, excuse me, could you say your name again?
Michelle Kirshner.
Thank you.
So you have the community's attention, and at every meeting, I've been coming to meetings since February, and, we hear from a lot of intelligent, well-educated people offering all sorts of advice. I really hope that you're hearing us, and it's not going to fall to deaf ears. All we're asking is for more transparency, more discussion, and a thoughtful decision process. These rash decisions are impacting the school district's integrity. You just have to slow down, take the time that's needed to refocus on what's in the best interest for the school district. You're faced with another decision tonight, to fill the open position on the school board or hold off. I don't want to say why the rush, but I feel like we have to, tape ourselves up again. Why the rush? Slow down. I want to ask you to go through the formal process. Let qualified candidates put their resume in, interview them, let them apply for the position. Just please don't simply rush through this appointment. Thank you.
Hi, Nikki Krelovich, Worcester Township. I know most of you guys here. I know a lot of you guys here. I'm commenting on item number 13. First of all, I would like to reiterate what a lot of people have said. This is an extremely difficult job, not only for all of you board members who volunteered your time and your energy for this, but for Dr. Zerby, Mr. Harney, and all the other administrators. I'm sorry, what was your name, Mr. Solicitor?
Kyle Summers.
Kyle, all right. It's your shining glory, Kyle. If I were sitting in your seats tonight and at many of the meetings this year, I probably would shut down too. I probably would speak out like Mr. Roth did after hearing people yell at me and come at me for doing a volunteer job when I believe we're all here for the same reason. We want Methacton to be a better school district. I've met each one of you individually. I've had conversations with you, and I've met Mr. Dorn. He's a good guy. I mean, from what I've seen, I worked the polls with him. I've met his family. I think he has the best intentions here as well. All I'm asking is that individually, you look at this and make sure that you feel like you've gone through the process in the same way that we would ask Dr. Zerbe to go through the process before he hires someone. We're not going to let him just pick someone and appoint them to a position without posting a job, posting the job, getting applicants, and reviewing them all and considering them all. That's all I'm asking, and that's all a lot of people are asking. Tonight, I'm asking you, Kim Woodring, I'm asking you, Jim Phillips, Greg Pelicano, Brenda Hackett, Kathy Barone, Maria Shackford, Herb Roth. I've talked to each one of you. I know you're good people. I'm just asking you to think about doing the right thing that you believe is right, not what someone else is maybe telling you what's right tonight. And with that said, Kyle, I'm curious, what is the process for submitting our resumes to be considered for the open board seat?
The board could establish a process for that, but it is not required to. So it would be up to the board to make that determination.
All right, well, I have my resume for that vacant seat. Who should I give it to?
Mrs. Hackett.
Ms. Hackett?
But she put her hand down. She's speaking up there.
Thanks, guys.
Evening, Larry Reich, Lower Providence. So, one point of clarification, I do think the solicitor overstates what Section 303 of the school code actually provides, and I would encourage you all to go read it for yourselves, because to say that it is clear on its face, I think is a vast overstatement. It's a provision of the school code, and specifically the language around the first Monday in December, that talks about how to establish a new school board for a new school district from scratch that never existed before, with brand new school board members where none previously hold office. So there's a lot of overstatement going on that score. To be clear, I'm not asking for a response from the solicitor. It seems odd to me that the solicitor jumps in at these school board meetings without invitation as much as they do, as being that they're not elected members of the school board. If you do have to respond, I'd ask you limit your remarks to 3 minutes. But let's talk about item 13, Mr. Dorn. So people have, I think, spoken quite eloquently about this issue. I don't think anyone has any reason to think Mr. Dorn is a bad person. The problem is most people don't know Mr. Dorn. The issue boils down to one of the legitimacy of this democratic institution. There are only two things that most people in this community know about Mr. Dorn, with due respect. They are that he was endorsed by the Republican Party to run for school board. That vetting process, people know, also resulted in the endorsement of another candidate who had to be de-endorsed and his name painted over on lawn signs because of some fairly outrageous social media comments that were not properly vetted when those endorsements were issued. They know that out of 9 candidates who ran in the general election for school board, he finished 9th. Those are the two things people know about Mr. Dorn. There has been no public process to this point of the sort that took place to appoint Mr. Pelicano and others in the past who've been appointed to this board to fill vacancies. There is no legitimacy. On top of that, I think it's telling that people in the room laughed when, Ms. Hackett, you made your comment at the start of the meeting about the lack of discussion among board members. Maybe there was no discussion among board members, but I think a lot of people are finding that difficult to believe, in part because, frankly, compliance with the Sunshine Act is not something on which this board has exemplified a perfect record to date. And there is a pall hanging over the decisions of the board for that reason. You all need to think about the legitimacy of this institution while you're on it and after you're on it. And you need to not put Mr. Dorn in a position, as others before me have said, where people are questioning his legitimacy as a member of this board. And Mr. Dorn, I think you need to search your conscience as far as, if appointed, whether you want to serve on this board under those conditions. Thank you.
Brian Earnshaw, Lower Providence. I will be commenting on item 13. One, nobody's commented on 13A. I encourage you to unanimously accept the resignation of Christian Nascimento. Regarding item B, there's been no comments on that. Is there going to be a separate public comment for the election of replacement board officers?
We will not be having a separate comment section.
Why not? Will you not be voting on anything there?
Sure, that's an item that's currently on the agenda. It's open for discussion or public comment now.
Can you share who is going to be nominated for the replacement board officers?
No nominations have been made.
So there'll be nominations, but no comment on something you're going to vote on. Is that correct?
There's an item on the agenda that is open for public comment at this time.
Well, given who's the board president right now, it seems to me like Ms. Hackett will be nominated for that position, and I would encourage the board to vote against that, even for that short duration. Two reasons. My two reasons I have is I believe that Ms. Hackett has a conflict of interest with respect to the Shannondale tax appeal. My understanding is that she's a resident of Shannondale and would directly or indirectly benefit from any positive settlement or reduction in property tax for the Shannondale retirement community. Secondly, at last week's board meeting, Ms. Hackett seemed to have some inside information about the Shannondale property tax appeal when she was talking about the budget, and commented that it's possible that it could be a favorable settlement. Whether Ms. Hackett got that information from somebody on the board, the solicitor, or the Shannondale management, we don't know. She did not provide any information on where she got that. She also seemed to know that $270,000 of additional property taxes would result from the additional expansion that Shannondale is currently undergoing. Also, in advance of the primary election, Ms. Hackett authored a letter to all registered Republican voters, and I presume in Shannondale. In that letter, she specified who people should vote for, her recommendations, which is fine. My issue is that at the bottom of that letter, she seemed to recommend that people violate the election law by stating, and I quote, "You can bring this letter with you when you vote, but it must be concealed until you are behind the curtain." End quote. All right, that ends my comments on 13AB. 13C, everybody's commented on the process for the replacement. I fully agree with that. The process is broken. My one question I do have is, will you be sharing what discussion you've had with Mr. Dorn? What kind of background check have you done? Has the board interviewed him? How did you select Mr. Dorn? Names out of a hat? Anyone care to comment?
We're taking comment from the public now. We're not commenting to the public.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Joe Bickelman from Audubon. I spent 35 years in school business, 33 years at Colonial School District, and 28 years attending school board meetings in Colonial School District as treasurer and chief financial officer. And during those times when there was a vacancy, we prided ourselves on a period of time taking applications and reviewing applications and resumes. And I still remember the interview processes where they would come and sit in the middle of the board and field questions from the board, and the best candidate was selected. And I've been attending these meetings here for about, I guess, a year and 8 months, and I've seen Dr. Zerbe announce that we will be taking applications for the vacancies that were open for Mr. Pelicano and Mr. McFarland. And we will be interviewing those most qualified candidates. And there was a sense of pride in this process that was going forth, although there was a lot of wink and nods from local chairpersons in the back of the room. But that's a process you should go through now. You should accept applications from people that want to serve the district, and you should review the resumes like you did in the past, and select the most qualified candidate. That would be the thing to do. And that's my opinion on item number 13. The other, I hear a lot of comments about the board job being so tough. Well, it's not tough if you do the right thing, because that's what I did in my job for the school district. I did the right thing, and it's easy, it flows, and it's rewarding. You know, you're not watching your back if you do the right thing. There could be unpleasant decisions that you need to make. Just make them in the proper manner, and things would flow. But it's not that tough a job if you do the right thing. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak about the board action items? Thank you. Then we'll move on the agenda to item 8, personnel items. Mr. Harney.
Yes, this evening we have one uncompensated leave, professional extension of a leave for Janet Cameron on the agenda tonight. We have one uncompensated leave classified for your approval. We have 2 classified additions to the substitute list, our casual on-call list. We're adding 7 volunteers to our approved volunteer list, and we have 1 advisement for this evening.
Thank you. Does anyone want to take any of these items separately? Then can I have a motion to approve personnel items 8H through M? Mr. Roth? Second. Ms. Barone? Any discussion? Then all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's 7-0. We'll move on to item 13. There are 3 items under item 13. 13A, do I have a motion to accept the resignation of board member S. Christian Nascimento? Mr. Roth? Second. Mr. Pellicano? Discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Anybody want to call him, make sure he wants to resign? I've been trying to get him to stop, but...
Can you say that again?
I can't hear you. I said I've been trying to get him to let me know if he'll reconsider, but hasn't got back to me.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Mr. Phillips. Okay, so it's 6-1. The next item is election of replacement board officers. Given the approval of Mr. Nascimento's resignation, being board president, I hereby ask the board for nominations for president, who will hold the office until such time of the reorganization meeting scheduled to occur on December 7th, 2015. Do I have any nominations for president? Mr. Pellicano?
I'll nominate Scott Dorn.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dorn is not a member of the board.
Okay, I would like to nominate Brenda Hackett.
Mrs. Hackett, I'm sorry.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
You're reporting yourself?
Any?
I appointed her. I motioned. Nominated her.
And I seconded it, and we voted.
Yes. Okay. Given the board approval as president, the office of vice president must now be filled. Do I have any nominations for vice president?
I'd like to nominate Herb Roth for vice president.
Is there a second? Mr. Pellicano. All those in favor?
Comment. I have a comment. And I just wanted to ask Kyle real quick,
hear us.
if, being that there's been a motion of somebody that's not on the agenda, should there be public comment on that motion?
There's no need to have public comment at this time. Public comment has occurred for all agenda items that were listed, including the election of replacement board officers, so there's no obligation to have a subsequent public comment session.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on Vice President? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so it's 7-0. Item 13C. As was mentioned earlier this evening, the board is required to fill a vacancy within 30 days of its occurrence. The vacancy may be filled by anyone who is a Pennsylvania citizen, has resided within the Methacton School District for at least the past year, is at least 18 years old, is of good moral character, and does not hold any incompatible office. In order to be appointed, an individual must receive a majority vote of the remaining members of the board, which in this case is 5 votes. Do I have a motion for appointment of an elector to fill the board vacancy?
Now I'll do Mr. Scott Dorn.
Thank you. Is there a second? Ms. Woodring? Discussion?
Yeah,
Mr. Pellicano?
I'll kick it off just because I think I've known Scott the longest, probably of any of the group up here. I know Scott and his wife Debbie and family for a number of years. I think he's been a resident of the township probably about close to 20 years. He's got 3 children, 3 daughters in the district. He's got an older daughter as a teacher, I think in the Pottstown or in that neighboring area. He's been active in the school district in the community for a number of years, coaching girls softball at Audubon Recreation Association. I've known him for that since my daughter was 8 years old. Found him to be a person of great, upstanding character. I think he's also been a referee for wrestling for many, many years, going on 30 years. And he's also, I think, involved with Kutztown University's foundation. I also know him from a business perspective as well. I think Scott would be a great addition to the board. He's just finished up a 30-plus year career at GE, which most people are very familiar with. And a respected company GE is. I think he was a managing global real estate operations director. Was his last position he held. He's managed a lot of folks worldwide, a lot of teams. He's worked in many different geographies, a lot of different folks. I think he would work well with all the members of the current board and the new board. I think he would actually do very, very well. And I think he'd be a great addition to the team. So
what a lot of people don't know about it.
This is appalling.
Any other comment on the nomination?
Yeah.
Mr. Roth?
Yeah, thank you. Apologize if I go into another coughing fit, but been fighting it all week. I understand the frustration of a lot of people out there. The procedure stinks, quite frankly. I'm not happy with it. I don't like the way agenda rides. I don't like the way things are done. But you know what? I didn't write the law. It's the way we have to follow things.
Another old boys club.
Everybody said we're supposed to have good moral character, and I'll tell you people are so rude. You are so rude. We have spent, you are rude.
Can we have order, please?
Yeah.
Madam President, can we have order?
Yeah.
That's fine. I understand. I'm still speaking, yes. With the past 2 vacancies, we've had a lot of different candidates come through, and a lot of qualified people. With the first one, we had no known people to the board who were willing to step up and serve, so we sent out requirements and requests for resumes and things like that. We went through a decent process. The second one happened very quickly after, so we had a slate of candidates already there. So that process was a little bit easier. This time we have a person who I feel is ready and willing to serve. I haven't known Scott as much as...
He's been rejected by the voters.
I'm trying to speak, please. And I understand that you people don't agree with what I may think or what I may have to say, but I haven't even said anything yet. I haven't even voted yet. So how do you know what I'm going to do? I love the way you guys come to me. And yeah, I'm saying you guys because it's always the same group of people. It's fine if you want to talk to me one-on-one. I wish somebody would. No one has ever come to talk to me. Maybe one or two people. Anyway, I think Mr. Dorn is a very good candidate. I think he's well qualified to serve on the board, and he has a vested interest in the district. It's quite apparent. The board is in its purview to go ahead and assign some, elect somebody, appoint somebody to this position the remaining term. It's been commented here that this job is not a tough job. I beg to differ. Often I've thought about resigning from this board, but then I thought that maybe I would be letting my children down. When my daughter said, "Don't resign, Dad. We need somebody in there, that wants to do the job," and you said you wanted to do the job. She didn't understand. She was only in 6th grade at the time. My son said to me, "Dad, go and do what you want to, go do what you feel is right. Go do what you need to do." He's in a high school, freshman in the high school. He's doing very well. He's homesick with 101-degree fever right now. We want Methacton to be better. We all agree with that. It was said to me here tonight, you need to pick the right person you think will do the job well. You need to make sure that you do what you feel is right in your heart. I understand that some people don't feel that this board has any responsibilities left, but they do. For the next few days, at least, this board is in session. And then a new board will come. It'll be sworn in, and that's the way it works, and that's great. 5 new people will get a chance to do what I've been doing for the past 6 years up here. And I look forward to working with them, quite frankly, because I think some of them have got some great ideas. I just wish that more people would understand that looking at from this side of the table out there is a lot harder than you realize. I sat out in the chairs. I've done it. And some people don't, I know some people don't understand how the board works. Some people do. They've served on a board. I see several in the audience tonight. They know that some things we can't talk about because we're bound by law. There's some things said in executive session that we can't talk about. Yet we get asked. We said, you don't tell you anything. It's because we can't. And when the 5 new board members get sworn in next week, after their first executive session, they'll understand why. Some of it really stinks, folks. It really stinks. But we have to talk about it. You have no idea. And I wish I could share it with you, but I can't. However, the new 5 board members that come in board next week will be able to finally understand what we go through on a monthly basis. Whether the board approves Mr. Dorn or not tonight, it makes no difference to me because I'm here serving my community. I feel he's a good candidate. I feel he's a good person. He's as good as anybody else in this room, quite frankly, and I feel that what the board is doing now is within its rights. Yeah, it may stink. I feel personally, I feel we should go through different sessions and have a lot of time. I feel we should have more than 30 days to appoint somebody. Criminy, we're going through a holiday. We're going to have Christmas in 23 days, 24 days. In my business, I'm going to be up to my already am up to my elbows in work. And also up to my elbows in helping my kids get their homework done. So if anybody has anything bad to say about me, go ahead. That's fine. But I'm not going to quit on the kids. I'm not going to quit on the district. Thank you.
Excuse me, could I ask one question before you have your vote, please?
Sorry, you can't, your time was before.
The only question I wanted to know was, what's the
Sorry.
process to accept applications to be appointed to this board? And how many other resumes have you received other than Mr. Dorn's?
You do not have a voice at the podium.
No, you heard me. I may not have a voice officially, but you heard me.
Is there any other discussion from board members on the nomination?
He's so good, keep winning in competition with other candidates.
Do I have a motion to close nominations? Ms. Woodring, second. Ms. Barone? All those who've been in favor of appointing Scott Dorn to fill the vacancy on the school board? Opposed? Passes 6 to 1.
Your own party told you not to do it.
I'd just like to make one comment. I know you all may not be agreeing with what we're doing, but as of right now, we are still sitting board members. What I would ask of all of you going forward, and for the 5 new people who have stepped up to put themselves out there in front of people like this, who all they do is scream and yell and send disgusting emails to us, and you are terrible. Whoever you are, you're terrible. So my point is, I really hope for your sake that people don't do to you what they have done to us. As Herb said, there are things that we cannot answer. We cannot discuss. They are sealed by confidentiality, and it's against the law for us to say things. So I'm not doing a question and answer. I'm just saying I am grateful for the time I had to serve on this board. I think we did some great things for this school district. As much as you have all vilified us in public, that is your opinion, and that is fine for you to do. But I hope for your sakes that you have the strength to stand up for what you believe is your thing, regardless of what everybody else screams at you. We make decisions based on what we think is right and the information we have and what we do. So I wish you all the best. I hope you all go forward with the strength to be able to sit here and listen to people scream at you, because this is terrible. It is really terrible. So I hope you get better. Good luck.
Thank you. Our next item is courtesy of the floor. Here, there doesn't need to be an agenda item for you to talk about. And we have a 3-minute time frame per speaker. Thank you.
Andrea Reese, Lower Providence. Seems silly to say. I just wanted to say, Mr. Roth, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Dorn, Mrs. Hackett, I look forward to next Monday. I do need it on record to say that I'm disappointed of this process. Maybe there is something I am not aware of. Maybe there is something I'm not aware of. But I need to put it on record that this just would have been so much better to do after a resume interview process. And I appreciate Mrs. Barone's comments that there are things we do not know until we are there. I appreciate that your son is ill. I missed my child's concert this evening because I felt like it was important to be here. I did introduce myself to you at the evening of the arts, and I did try to introduce myself to Mr. Dorn a few times at the polls. I think I was rebuffed, but I understand elections can be somewhat contentious. Mrs. Hackett agreed to be my mentor. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that, but no matter what, the 9 of us, the 10 of us, with Dr. Zerbe, will do our very best, and we will bring a little bit more transparency to the board.
This question is addressed to Mr. Roth or Mrs. Barone. You both mentioned matters.
Excuse me, could you state your name again?
Sorry, Matt Bogard, Lower Providence. You both mentioned issues of secrecy. I guess what I asked, again, just so confidential, same thing, confidentiality related to this election, this vote tonight. So I asked that when you can let us understand what those confidential reasons are for the choice tonight, that you please let us know so we can understand your decision tonight.
I don't believe I mentioned anything about tonight's vote.
Okay, maybe then I misunderstood.
Executive session items in general.
In general, so not speaking to that tonight. That's fine then. I really would love to hear, though, what your thought process was tonight. If you guys would care to share that, I'd appreciate it. And I personally can guarantee I will not interrupt your discussion because I want to understand what you're thinking and get inside your head tonight.
And you know what, Mr. Bogart, I would love to speak to you one-on-one, but to speak and share my thoughts in front of all these people and be screamed at, I have no desire whatsoever.
Okay. I'll reach out to you personally. Thank you.
Chris Boardman, Worcester again. Mr. Pelicano, I got to be your wingman on that one. I would have sent Mr. Doran too, given the amount of times that his name's been referenced tonight. I mean, I would have made the same mistake. What I wanted to do is I missed the last board meeting before the outgoing board members leave. I wanted to thank them for their service. I wanted to also thank them for having enough guts to run again. If you look at the election, we had 5 open positions and we had 9 valid candidates. Other school districts have to go out and knock on doors to get 5 candidates to fill those 5 spots. So I'm encouraged that our community and our existing board members took it upon themselves to get a real race going. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate the other board members who I'll be sitting on that side of the table next week, I guess, on the 7th. And please don't yell at me. So I appreciate your efforts. And I just wanted to say thank you to the board members that are leaving. I know a couple of them aren't here, and I want to share appreciation for all the work they did in serving in the unpaid position that they did.
Shannon Peffer, Lower Providence. I just want to make a statement, mostly to the audience, to please try to control our outbursts because it kind of negates this whole public experience if our anger comes out. I'm emotional. I wrote a letter to all of you that I would love to read, but I don't really think that everybody else needs to hear it. I'm very disappointed with the process. I'm very disappointed with decisions that were made. I don't think every one of you truly made them from your heart. But that's for you to decide, not me. I do think that we got to this point of contention in this community because of the lack of transparency. I don't like coming to these meetings. I hope to not have to do this. I hope to not have to sit here and babysit a board to make sure they're making decisions for the good of our community. I'm thinking with the 5 in place, I won't have to be here every month. I would love that. I would love for my daughter to get to do homework at home tonight. But she didn't. She did it sitting here. The lack of transparency, the lack of communication is what brought us to this point. What's brought people to yell out in anger. And I apologize for my community here, how much anger is in this room. I would question and I would challenge the incoming board to please give people more than 3 minutes when there's something to say. That's not a rule that you have to follow. You also can actually answer questions in public. They may not be things that legally can't be discussed. I understand that and I respect that. But I hope the incoming board will change things and make this community able to have a dialogue. Thank you.
I will be extremely brief. Eric Markowitz, Lower Providence Township. I just want to congratulate Mr. Dorn on being nominated to the board. I know him well. I've talked with him, and I think he will be an excellent addition to the board. So thank you for your work you've done, and good luck to you in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else for courtesy of the floor? Then, Ms. Alabak?
Candy Alabama, Eagleville.
I'd like to thank the outgoing board members, and I know I've been hard on you every school board meeting. I have said what I thought. I've never made it personal. I have been against a lot of decisions that you made, and in the previous boards, because it has cost the taxpayers a lot of money, I have steadfastly spoken out against the turf project. And a lot of the reasons that I used for it are now coming to light publicly, nationally, about football and injuries to children and adults. But you went ahead with the project, that's fine. I would like to thank the outgoing board members. You served well, it's a tough job. Many a night you sat here in the room and there was only maybe 4 people in the room. But as far as the process for school directors, I've been coming here 10 years on a regular basis, and only twice have I seen a process done where you've taken applications. First one, we've had, up till tonight, 6 board members resign. First one that resigned, they did a process when Wilson Bohannock resigned. Then Michael Simeone resigned. He just didn't show up one night. Then Howard Jones walked out of a school board meeting and resigned, and Mrs. Hackett was appointed in his place. Mr. Simeone had one appointed immediately in his place. Last June, we had 2 resignations. One was kind of expected, the other one was a surprise. That's when the process was put in place, which no one was surprised because no one was here. There was applications taken. There was at least 10 names on each application, and I know for a fact the one name on both applications for the open seats had attended school board meetings on a regular basis and was overlooked. And no offense to anyone on the board, but the only one I can say with certainty who attended school board meetings on a regular basis before they were elected to that seat was Mr. Phillips. Anyone else that ever ran for school board, I've never seen him in this room in 10 years on a regular basis. That's every month, twice a month. So I wish you good luck in your future endeavors. I wish the new school board directors a lot of luck. They're going to need it. It is not an easy job. I've seen it from my position in the audience, and I realized how hard it was when I put my name in for school board. And then I realized the smartest thing that happened to me is I didn't get the endorsement, that I was better off in the audience. Mr. Dorn, I wish you a lot of luck and congratulations. I've read Mr. Dorn's resume, and I think he will be a good addition. He has a lot of experience being on boards. We need someone with board experience. And unfortunately, he didn't win the election, but the board is at liberty to appoint whoever they want. And I understand the process because I read the school code last night. So good luck in the future, and I wish all of you a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Joe Worson, Upper Providence. I'm appalled. And frankly, the fact that people keep saying this is a hard job, I don't understand it. If you make ethical, moral decisions based on what you truly believe is the right thing, that is not difficult. And that's what you're called to do. You can live with yourself if you explain yourself. Not every matter that comes before the board is confidential. I've been to not every board meeting. I'm a newcomer, but I've never heard you actually have much discussion about any issues and most of them don't seem like confidential issues. Or if they are confidential issues, why can't you explain why they are confidential and why you can't discuss them? It's that would appease most of us in the room if we could have some kind of understanding about why you're doing the things you're doing. The lack of transparency is what is driving people to be so completely and abysmally disappointed in the board, okay? With the new board coming on, I think we need to revisit some of the rules, the 3-minute rule. I have all the time in the world for my education of my child, and I don't think there's any need to rush it. If people have things to say, I think we need to hear them. And I am so relieved with the election results, and I thank you all for running because we desperately need folks on the board who care more about our children than they do about politics.
Any other comments Mr. Anders?
Ron Evans, Worcester Township. I want to congratulate the board members, every one of them. They showed a lot of courage tonight and a lot of respect, and they took a lot of abuse. And the audience, too, I want to comment on ones that were booing out there. I was on the board for fighting for football lights for 20 years, and I had a lot of people for me and I had a lot of people against me. I have never took that kind of ridiculous criticism and ignorance that some of you people in the audience did. For the ones that showed your respect, I applaud them, but for the ones that didn't, I think you are pretty ignorant.
Thank you.
Joe Bickelman from Audubon. I just have a question. Mr. Nascimento wasn't marked down as absent at the beginning of the meeting, and his resignation didn't occur till after that. Shouldn't he be marked absent?
You're probably right. My mistake.
Okay. Kyle?
I was just going to say the minutes at the next meeting could reflect that.
All right. I'm really disappointed in the fact that there wasn't a application process and a resume process for review and interview process by the whole board. I could have learned a lot about Scott Dorn during the question and answer period from the board members. So I was really disappointed in that. And, you know, it just doesn't seem like it was a good educational decision to make. It really wasn't. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then I'll ask for a motion for adjournment. Ms. Brown.
Just like to say, hopefully I gave everybody a good laugh with my slip up there, but I'd just like to wish Mr. Boardman, Mr. Ryan, Ms. Reese, Ms. Larsenes, Mr. Winters good luck. It's a tough job. It is. There's a lot of things you guys got to work on. You know, you got a budget where really 95% of the budget is really contractually driven or fixed. It's a challenge. It's hard to peck away at it, especially. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas and a lot of things you want to do, but it is very tough. And believe me, we've thought of all the ones we've heard out there from you guys. It's just not easy to pull off, given where we're at. So, I wish you luck if you can figure out how to make that happen. You know, we got issues with the enrollment. As you guys know, we dropped 110 students this past year, probably 500 over the last decade or so. You know, capacity really needs to look at, you know, whether Audubon or another school needs to be closed or not. I mean, you know, in my opinion, looking at the data, even if it doesn't or you don't think it does, redistricting has to occur to spread the kids out, regardless. So there's going to be pain one way or another. That's just my opinion, you know, based on what I've seen on the data. So you're going to have to really take a look at that. You know, I hope you continue to look for efficiencies. I mean, we tried to try and push efficiencies wherever we could to try and squeeze that out. You know, we've worked with Dr. Zerby, Mr. Whiteleather in a lot of different areas to try and squeeze whatever we could out, implement, you know, practices that maybe we've seen in the corporate world. So hopefully that will work for you guys. You know, you got a teacher's contract coming up in 2 years as well. You know, you'll have to do your diligence around that too, and what's been paid out to the teachers' contracts in other districts as well. That's not going to be an easy thing. Hopefully, you will get some good news with other settlements in the near future. That'll help us out from a district perspective quite a bit if that occurs. You know, hopefully, you'll continue to look at the curriculum. I think the Education Committee, which Ms. Hackett chaired, which I joined, we'll continue to look at a lot of the classes. I mean, again, I think for the last year and a half, I mean, we took a different approach. I mean, we started looking at classes that were not being utilized and started paring them back. And we weren't doing that because we wanted to cut classes. We wanted to do that so we could add different classes. So, you know, it's in my view, it's a zero-sum game. You want to cut things back, but you want to add some things. There's a lot of AP classes and a lot more honors classes and things we want to add. So, you know, I continue to look at that, try and cut out those classes. But the only thing I'll mention in that regard is just be careful about the arts because it's a challenge. You don't want to cut too much out in the arts. I found, at least, we struggle a little bit with that. Some of the arts classes tend to be a little bit less enrolled, and I hate to see us really cut back in that. People talk about STEM, but I think it's really about STEAM, adding the arts in there as well. Also, I just want to add, too, that, you may not be aware of it, and I know we took criticism as a board, but this board's decision well before I got on it was for the curriculum to have the STEM classes integrated into the curriculum and not set up a separate STEM academy. That's just too expensive for this district, again, in my view, for us to handle. Instead, the board, through its curriculum, introduced various STEM-type classes into the curriculum. I still believe that that's the best way to go, the most efficient way to go, and I think we can continue to build on that. I just don't think, again, in my heart of hearts, that we can't afford a STEM academy like the Downing-towns of the world. We just don't have that tax base to be able to do it. So continue to try and look there as best you can. Staffing is another issue. It's just one of those things across the district, and I'm not picking on any group or anything else like that. You just got to really just take a look at that, make sure you understand what's out there, do your best there. It's not an easy decision. So I just wish everybody the best, and I've enjoyed working with everybody, I'd like to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pellicano, and we will all miss you. And we do welcome Scott Dorn to join the board, and he will be sworn in within the next day or so. Can I have a motion for adjournment? Mr. Pellicano? A second? Ms. Barone? We are adjourned.